Hello there, I'm Ben and welcome to Field and Foley episode 26. Today I'm excited to introduce Mikel Parraga-Wills, a highly esteemed Foley Mixer based in Los Angeles, California. With an impressive resume featuring projects like Fast X, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and two of my favorite movies of the last years, Oppenheimer and Dune Part 2. Join us as we explore Mikel's journey, his insights into Foley mixing, and his contributions to the world of cinema. So, hi Mikel, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh, how's it going? Very excited to be on this show. You do a great job, so it's nice to be on.
Thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
So diving right in, something that I'd like to make more and more on this podcast is like giving people that aren't like well versed in the world of sound a bit of an insight. So can you maybe briefly explain what a Foley mixer does?
Well, briefly, we basically capture the Foley. We were behind the glass, recording, messing around with some EQs, making it so that the actual recording of the Foley is basically as ready as we can get it for a dub stage. Basically as close as we can get it while still maintaining kind of the raw, true grit and nature of the Foley. So that's basically our job. And then there's kind of the, downloading the materials, setting up a session for the day, communicating with clients, making sure that we know what the schedule is. Some Foley artists kind of just do the Foley and it's sometimes they don't even know what time it is. So it's like we have to really kind of keep them on track. In general, it works differently everywhere else. But yeah.
So you're like a shepherd for the Foley people.
Yeah.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, when I began like with my journey into also Foley recording, for people that don't know, just check out episode 0 just to explain all the terms. But like when I explored this, I was like in my room, like recording the very simple stuff like creaks and stuff like that and clothing. And when I first heard like there are actual like Foley mixers, I was like, oh, that would be so cool. Just to concentrate on the one thing, because I always felt like oftentimes, at least in the beginning, I would like record something and then immediately check if the recording was good, maybe EQ it a bit, then go back to recording, and it really took me out of the experience. And now what I do, I mean, most of the time I'm a one-man sound team, in teams maybe two-mans, but for video games it's often not that big team, not that big of a team. Now I really like to concentrate on the recording part first and then go to all the recording, then mix it, EQ it, and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
I can really appreciate your job as being like an integral part of it all, because I feel like, especially if you have a fresh pair of ears, so to say, to hear over the material, that's something that's always a plus. And can you maybe walk us a bit through the process of like Foley mixing for a movie? Like you have, like you said, you have your schedule. Do you like plan out recording days and set up certain things before the Foley artists come, or do you even record Foley yourself sometimes? Whatever you can tell us.
Yeah, well, again, everybody kind of works differently. At our company, I work for a small company called One Step Up, and we kind of have to wear a lot of the hats. And so I have recorded Foley. Our main Foley artist, Dan O'Connell, is really good. He's been doing it forever, so he's really the best. I'm learning a little bit from him, so I'll do sometimes if he hasn't gotten there. We have another mixer, and she'll come, and I'll do like background characters, footsteps, stuff like that, and then so kind of get everything ready so that Dan can just do like the main characters and all the crazy stuff, and then there's kind of the editing, Foley editing, which is traditionally done with somebody else, but I kind of learned how to do it. Industry's changing a lot, so sometimes I'll also edit some of our Foley. which really is just putting it in sync and turning it down because it's already kind of tonally and cadence and timbre. It's
Yeah.
usually already there. Yeah, so that's kind of, and then as far as preparation, Foley mixing, yeah, it's just sort of making sure that Dan or whoever can just walk in and be like, what's the first cue? And then it could go bam. And then as far as planning a session, usually we like to do wet after we do the, like if we have wet footsteps and dry footsteps,
Mm-hmm.
we'll wait to do the wet until the end.
Of course. The mess for the end.
Yeah, the mess for the end. So just, basic stuff like that. Sometimes we'll add some creaks, like leather into the footstep as we do the footstep. We'll bake it in depending on who we're working for. Some people like that as a sweetener. The creak.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I'm guessing also it depends on the style of the movie and of the
yeah.
the kind of. Yeah, also that is also something that's really interesting to me. Do you get like kind of art direction for that? It's like, hey, we want it like hyper realistic, or hey, we want the Foley to be very, very subtle and like not take up much space, or like, do you get something like that from directors or from somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it'll be, written in the queue. It'll say, I don't know. It'll say something. We're like, really? Okay. Uh, I know for certain movies, like for Dune, I think the supervising sound editor was telling us that they didn't want to hear the bottom of the sand for certain areas. They're like, we don't want to hear the bottom. So,
Yeah.
you don't want to hear the kind of the you just want to hear the
Yeah.
and so that adds that nature. Sometimes we'll do that, and then and it depends. I mean, we did a project for Clint Eastwood, and I know that for those projects, it's like more very natural. Nothing's over the top, kind of thing.
Yeah. Very low key. Yeah. That's interesting. I really heard that in Dune, especially like when you see the Freeman walk, you really also like hear that they are like masters of walking in the desert very quietly, and
Yeah,
this non-rhythmic walking to not attract the worms and something. And I really liked all the little Foley things that were like, yeah, as you said, like not with a lot of bass or bottom, not with a lot of impact, because you sometimes get that even in sand, and this was like a really fresh thing. So yeah, really appreciated that as a as an audio nerd.
that was hard. That was a hard one. Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
like because the worms. It's like you can't make too much noise, but as the audience member, you're not, no worm's gonna come for you, so you still need to be able to hear what you think it should sound like, and also maintain the integrity of the storytelling, which is if you can hear the floor, then the worms are gonna come and the movie's over, and we gotta last for however many hours it is.
Yeah, that's something that's especially also in video games is something that if you don't have footsteps, you need it to ground the player. Because if you're walking around and you don't have that feedback, and it's just even if you can't see your legs, you need to have those sounds to feel that you're actually like grounded in this world, and that's something that I think people don't know, but they will instantly notice when it's missing. They will notice something doesn't feel right. It does feel shallow, or it does feel like non-immersive, or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I can really see that is something that's probably interesting to try to find the right amount of impact for that. So yeah, maybe let's talk a bit about Dune, because I just saw it like last weekend finally, and
Let's do it.
yeah, as I said, one of my favorite films of the last years.
It's crazy.
The first one and the second one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you work on Dune. Anything? What made this project unique? I mean, the footsteps you already told me about, but maybe anything else? Maybe the clothing or anything that's out of the ordinary?
Yeah, I mean, the forget the bad guys.
The Harkonnen.
The Harkonnen, yeah. So they have these like black hoods on or something when they're in the desert, and like getting their so like getting that gear right was like very important, because it's got to sound totally scary, and so getting that gear was like, and the guns kind of right, and like there was a fair amount of manipulation to the signal, I guess, the sound signal. There was a fair amount of like a manipulation. And, funny story. So Dan, who primarily was the Foley artist on this project, Dan O'Connell, he did the first Dune in the 80s or whatever.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, and for the Soundworm, he often tells this story. I mean, he's not here. Maybe he'll do a podcast with you another time. He's a great person to talk to if he's not too busy. But I know he tells this story where they had a machine that was broken, it was like a recording machine. I forget what it was, and it was broken.
Yeah.
So when we were recording the Sandworms, but it was recording in double speed, right? So then it changed the sound, and then the mixer at the time was like, "Oh no, the machine's broken," and Dan was like, "Wait a second, no. Let's do that. Let's record it in double time and let's see what happens." And so that's kind of how it was, like an accident. And that's kind of how I felt it was with this, because we didn't do Dune Part 1, the newest iteration.
Yeah.
We did. That's kind of how I felt with this one, where it was like, let's see how weird and accidental we can make it, certain things, and then kind of balance it with like the what is it, the Fremen or the good people or whatever. Yeah, like kind of with the reality of their costumes and their gear, kind of balance like unnatural, natural.
Oh yeah, I see. So trying to make more manipulation of sound for the bad guys, to make them sound more evil and more unnatural. That's very cool.
Because they're freaky.
Yeah.
I mean, they're scary. It's like there's like
they're weird.
The guy's dad, Skarsgård, actor, he's like in water all the time or something, or he's in this bathtub. So all the little moves, in all the little
swishes,
all the little weird swishes, and there was so much. I haven't seen it yet. Okay.
Oh yeah, so you just had the work, but you haven't seen the final picture. That's interesting.
Yeah, no.
You're in for a ride.
Everyone keeps telling me, and I'm like, I know. Yeah, but the Sandworms those were really fun too. I know so we kind of would just do their movement through the sand. I think Mark Mangini, I forget if he did this one.
The first one he did. I think the second one he didn't.
Yeah, he has this thing. It's on YouTube, so I don't feel like I'm speaking out of turn. But he had the thing with the lavaliers, where for when the worm is coming out, he would put a lavalier like down his throat. So so it would kind of give it that thing. But so like layering was really important, and sometimes we'd have to go until like 10 o'clock at night or more, because it's like, once the Foley artist gets the sound, once the sound is gotten, it's like, can't put it down. Gotta see it all the way through, because it might change if we don't. That's how like precise it was. It was like, we can't have lunch right now. We have to just keep going.
Holy hell! Yeah, that sounds like a real breakneck thing. Maybe because you just mentioned it, that you didn't see the movie yet. Is this something that when you worked on a movie, how do you experience the movie afterwards? Is it like the whole plot is already like, you already seen everything, or is it something where it's like, oh, that's amazing how it all comes together in the end?
I haven't been doing it for so long that I get jaded by working on it. So I'm still kind of, like new enough where I still go to the movie and I'm like, holy shit, You
That's
know,
cool.
yeah. So not really. I think Oppenheimer, that one, I kind of because I queued it and I was like from front to end. It was like you know, but that one was the one where I was like, because it's Christopher Nolan. I was like, I don't know what
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm a little confused. Why is it black and white? Why are some things in color? Like, what the hell's going on? Let me just
Yeah.
let me forget and just move on. So no, I totally enjoy the movies uh, after them. Like, yeah, I try not
Yeah.
to get too invested in the story while I'm working on them. Yeah, I try and just
Yeah, makes sense.
yeah, even like, if I'm with the Foley artist or I'm the Foley artist and with the mixer, like some people like to talk about like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Oh, like this character that, and I try and not do that. I'm like, I just want to what we're doing is the story. You know, what we're doing is the
Yeah.
story. Because otherwise it's like you gotta leave some excitement for later.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you're also focusing on a lot of things, um, and you're probably getting the scenes all out of turn, and like,
Totally.
or have to set them up in a certain order because, like you just mentioned, like you do the dry stuff first and the wet stuff, so it's all like a jumbled thing. Um, so yeah, that's something that's always interesting to me how that. Yeah, when you're at the stage where the sausage is made and then you see the final product, it's always a different experience, but it's yeah, it's interesting to hear that you still have that excitement when you see it. And then I mean you see your name somewhere in the credits, which is also cool, right?
Yeah, yeah. After you wait like for 20 minutes after the movie's over, then it's like
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, that's kind of cool. It's mostly my mom. My mom will wait.
I waited as well. We all waited in the cinema, and I saw your name on Saturday. So
Oh,
good
good.
job.
Oh, good. All right,
Yeah.
they did it. They did a good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, that's God. I'm honored. That anybody would wait that long. To see the
Now,
credit.
to be honest, I oftentimes like to just after the movie's finished, sit in the cinema and let it actually sit and not just like take my stuff and get outside. I like to like calm and now that I've spoken to a few people, then it's always, of course, also like the okay, maybe I recognize a name, or maybe it's like, oh, this movie was so good, I'm trying to find out who did this specific thing, and I'm gonna write them
Yeah.
because I want them on my podcast. So yeah, that's now like I'm trying to stay as long as I can, at least till all the audio people were there. So because that's my thing.
And the music is good too. I mean, like the
Yeah, of
songs.
course.
Somebody
Yeah,
put effort into that. It's like
yeah.
that. Like you say, that you just brought me as part of it is like the movie's done, and then it's like now there's some song. Something.
And it rounds off the experience at the end.
Totally rounds it
Hopefully, yeah.
off. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, especially like you said, especially if you have a really powerful song at the end. I don't understand people like just getting up and leaving in the middle of a song, which is like, as you said, like ties it all off, and it's like just like bask in it for a bit. But yeah, I'm guessing we have a lot of people that are like trying to get from this experience to the next experience very quickly, and I've already spoke with like Shirley on episode I think 19 about like this if people even enjoy long form content anymore, but I'm guessing they do. But it's probably depends on also like what kind of person you are and what mood you're in. But yeah, I really like to stay most of the time until most of the credits have rolled and the song, at least the first song, has finished. I mean, it depends on how I feel. Um, but yeah, coming back to the actual topic because I'm blabbering on.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
You're yeah, shit, man. I feel like I'm blabbering on, so.
I mean that's what this podcast is about. People like us blabbering. So yeah, what I wanted to ask is because especially Dune, and we can also talk about Oppenheimer later, but I will want to stay on Dune a bit. Do you have anything, maybe any interesting props you used or the recordist used? Anything that like springs to mind where it's like, oh yeah, we did this thing which was totally like weird and worked like a charm.
We had well, the standard one is like, celery for cracked bones and
Course.
weird shit like that. We had some weird like jelly gel pads that you sit on.
Oh yeah,
They're
yeah.
like blue and they kind of have a honeycomb. pattern. We use that for some things, like for some movement, and so that's always kind of weird. Yeah, because you can do a lot with that, for kind of like more icky, kind of like oozy kind of things. Sometimes I don't even know what Dan is using because he'll just go get a prop and
Oh, you just hear it and you don't see it.
yeah, I don't hear because our stage is like it's like we got 100-foot ceilings. It's like 50 feet wide. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's like massive, and like sometimes like we'll turn the lights low, so like he'll just go, and then you'll just hear like, and then he'll come back with something that sounded nothing like the pile that you can hear him going through, which is kind of funny. But let's see, anything like super crazy. I mean, I like for. Like I think the Harkonnens, it was like, some rubber things that we kind of hadn't used in a long time, for like the gear. And I do know that I had to go get like 100 pounds of sand because we were like, we need more sand, we need more sand. And I guess that was really it's the boring shit, right? That's the boring stuff, I guess. So it's like I had to go to like a hardware store, and
And get actual sand.
yeah, and I had to test out the sand.
Oh yeah, if it sounded right.
Yeah, I was like, if it sounded right, I would like rub my hand through it, and then because that's the other thing that at our company, the way we do it is like I'll go and get the props, and it kind of it's just how we do things. It's like I'll go get the props and then I'll bring them, and then Dan will work with them, or whoever. But yeah, so I went and I found like really like light sand, almost like you would find in the Caribbean or something. And then more like heavier sand. And that was really, the hard part too, I guess, was making things cut through, because sometimes, especially when they're riding the worm, spoiler alert, I guess, I don't know.
Nah, it's already a trailer. That's fine.
Okay, yeah, okay, there you go. So it's like making all the little straps and the reins. I don't know if making those things like cut through, because there's so much going on, but making things cut through is like it's important. So you could pretty much use anything for, how it is with Foley. It's like you can use anything for anything.
Yeah.
In a way, as long as you just in a way. I mean, that's obviously not 100% true, but
No, but I know what you mean. It's like you need to find the thing that sounds right and not the thing that is the right thing. And just like you said with the sand, for example. I mean, I find that very interesting, and I hope like people, especially people that aren't that much into sound, I'm getting a lot of feedback that I really enjoy, like hearing about that. And I think that's something that you don't think about. You think about maybe, they probably have a bunch of like a big amount of sand there to record those sounds, but then it's like, what kind of sand? Like you need different kinds of sand, and they sound very different, and you can do very different things with that. And some of those aren't maybe even sand, maybe it's something else. And I just recently like saw something about the making of the old Dune movie, and they made something like very weird where they, for the filming, they had everything in like in models, and they needed very fine sand because it's of course all the scaled models, so they need very fine sand. So they actually used like, what was it? I think it was very finely grained glass. So everyone had to wear a mask because it was super unhealthy. Like if you breathe it in, it like cuts up your lungs. So like the whole filming crew was just in gas masks.
Oh my God.
They had this glass powder, and so then if you like shoot it and like blow it up, you actually see that it's sand, because otherwise you would see like grains and you would see it all miniature. So yeah, weird shit like that.
Oh yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. It's like just random, just little things you would never think about. You just try it, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, you find out what did work, and hopefully Because I think glass is what isn't glass rock? I mean, it's just like highly
Yeah, yeah,
in a way. So it's
like highly polished kind of things. I'm also not that well versed in in
geology.
all the like different materials, but yeah, I mean, there's like different far as I know, there's so many different kinds of sand and so many different like mixtures of sand with different. So it's like, yeah, it's a weird stuff. Yeah, but speaking about like you try some stuff. Do you know of anything, or does anything come to mind where you like really took a long time to like find the right sounds or to finish the scene? I mean, you mentioned, for example, with the worms, like finding sounds to cut through. I would also guess probably like trying to EQ them or like making them cut through the mix so you can hear them over all the commotion. But maybe on the recording or mixing side, something where you like really struggled with a scene or with something or sounds.
The time when there's massive like armies or whatever, or when and they all put their hands up or something. It's like trying to kind of there's like 1,000 people and you need to get hands up. So it's like, how do you make it so that one person can sound like 1,000 people without recording one person 1,000 times? So some proprietary kind of programs that we would use, but nothing too crazy, but just something that we like to do, and that kind of worked. But then it's like, then the gear might be off, so then you're like, okay, well, this made it sound like a lot of people, or that it could be edited that way or mixed that way if the mixers, because we're recording for the dub stage and for the editors, and because it's like we'll record and then we'll be like, okay, well, we know that they can do something with that. So it's like, it's almost, it's making like a very like a piece of clay, that someone can mold. So then maybe like the gear is okay, so then we gotta change the gear. Then you change the gear, but then now the original hand up didn't work. So then you got to go back and, so like stuff like that. All the little knives that they had. So, it's like, I don't know how many, 50 different, go through like 50 different knives. And then, what ends up working is like, I don't know, like, and it depends on, it depends on like the frequencies of the scene. It's like, so in one shot,
what gets through?
what gets through is like, in one shot it might be the same knife, and you use like, like a piece of, like a knife or something, and you move it against something, and that works, and you're like, okay, that works. And then the next scene you're like, okay, now the acoustics are different, the score is changed. Maybe there's more strings. I forget if there are strings, but you know what I mean. Maybe
of course.
Yeah, there's different. It's different. The frequencies change. So it might just be 2 seconds in. So then you're like, okay, now we have to use something else, maybe. Because that thing we were originally using didn't cut in. So find ourselves switching props a lot for the same scene.
That is cool. Yeah, that's something that I'm pretty sure most people are not aware of, that you're not like using one knife, or most of the time you probably don't even use like a knife, or especially like for swords. For example, I have some Foley swords here. I don't know if you've seen those. Like, those are so cool because like they swing like a long time. They have like bends in them, and like if you clank them against each other, you have that classic samurai sword, like shing.
Yeah. Oh.
That rings out very long, and normal swords don't do that. So you have to use those kinds of swords to achieve that sound.
It's so random, the shit that you end up using that ends up working.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's even about like what the expectation is. Like, it's, oh, if I use the actual prop, it sounds so boring that the people in the cinema will think like, oh, something's off. It doesn't sound like especially you have that with gunshots, for example, and you have that with swords, and you have that with other stuff as well. I'm guessing also punches is always something. Like, real punches are never like cinema punches. Like, it's so like boring in real life. I mean, it hurts a lot, but it's like, it doesn't sound
no, they don't sound like anything.
that harsh. Yeah. So yeah, but that's also interesting to hear that because it's very different from the world of video games because where I'm primarily working in because you usually have for the weapons and the utilities you have the one like the one sounding thing and you design it and you need to find a way to make it work like in every scene in different reverbs in different environments and so you're like constantly trying to at the end especially like trying to mix it all so it fits in every like kind of every scene but the
Yeah,
cool thing is also of course in video games you can do like dynamic mixing you can say like if we want to have something especially stuck out for example if the character is low on health we want to have the music die down and some stuff like that you have a lot of dynamic stuff.
oh, because you have to. So for
Yeah.
video games, you have to iterate a lot, right? You have to.
Yeah, and of course, like tests. Like I have a lot of test rooms where it's just I can walk around with a character and I walk over different surfaces. I walk into different reverbs, and then I can test all the footsteps and the weapons and the whatever else Foley stuff like clothes movement, and also can test them in different situations. Like it's a combat scene, or I'm sneaking, or it's like a cutscene, and so. I mean, for cutscenes, usually I do like the normal, like the cinema way. I'm doing like the sound for this cutscene, but for everything else that's not a cutscene, it's always dynamic. Like I could be in this room and it could be very quiet, or I could be there and people are like shooting at me. And both of the times it has to work. So you're doing a lot of, especially with the mixing, you're doing a lot of adjustments to say like, okay, if this happens, then turn this up and down, or AQ this, and yeah,
Yeah, it's like scene to scene. It's like moment to moment.
yeah,
So it's like slow like that. It's like it's like we'll do some footsteps and then it's not uncommon to be like, okay, the fifth step didn't sound good. So
yeah.
let's go into record just for the fifth step.
That's funny. Yeah,
Yeah, so then you have to figure out what shoe you started on. Because if you started on your left foot, it sounds different because one is ba-da, 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 da, da, da,
yeah,
da, da. So then the fifth one is da, da, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the same foot that you started on, so
nice.
you have to be, okay, 1, dun, 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 5. Okay. And so you hear it back over again, and then, after a while, it's like, so you record a lot of the Foley for video games?
Yeah, I mean, I'm especially fond of Foley and also field recording, so I like to go out in the woods or in like caves or stuff like that,
Ugh.
and get like the natural environments and stuff like that. And I also tried to go into the whole thing of recording my own impulse responses from places because I also find that interesting. And
What is
yeah, I
impulse?
especially like the. I'm sorry, what?
Impulse response? What is that?
Oh yeah, that's when you record like the reverb of an actual space. Like you set up speakers and a microphone, and you put a sine sweep through, and it records like the reverb. And you can like extract with software. You can like extract the sine sweep, and then you get the actual reverb. So if you put anything in there, it sounds like it's played in that space.
Oh, got it, got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's so amazing. I mean, you
Oh yeah,
are
that's fun.
really, yeah. I mean that's incredible. We don't do a lot of those things, and so
Of
like
course, yeah.
and so it's like I wouldn't even know kind of where to start necessarily. It's like how it is. It's like in sound, it's so specialized, especially when you get on the feature, or and on any level really. It's
Yeah.
you're like, wait, you do what?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I just, like I said, it's something I want to go into more. And, but there's already a lot of things out there that you can, like, libraries that you can buy from, like, people that have great spaces. But I myself like the work of recording and the actual, like, experience and being out in nature. So, that's also what I like to bring to my projects. When I'm on a project, I like to record as much as I can, and only for that project. I mean, if I have something very special, I will keep it for others as well. But oftentimes, I'd like to just like do it for this project, and for the next project, I start from scratch to make everything sound like unique. And yeah, but it's like yeah, as I said, like I'm dabbling into it, but I'm doing a lot of all those things, and I have to do the mixing myself. It depends on the project, but it's like yeah, it's smaller scale all and smaller budget, so I'm trying to fit it all in. But yeah, I'm not good at mixing, so I'm I really appreciate a good mixer. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I
just have
mean,
to say that.
and that's kind of like it's one of the reasons why the our company does well, I guess, is because the Foley is kind of already at, you don't need to manipulate it necessarily that much.
Yeah,
And
you have a building block and you can put in your project, right? It's like
yeah, yeah,
already refined.
it's already kind of refined, and it's you don't need to do that much, and it's kind of like what you're saying, how you do it, where you sort of cater to the specific, like if you're going to do a new project, you're going to do new recordings, not rely so much on what you've already saved, because then you can really kind of get into the feeling of everything, which is, I think, what it's really all about, is like, what's the emotion, what's the feeling. Yes, it's a fork down, but like, who is the character who's putting the fork down?
Yeah, how much force is in
How
there?
much force is in it? Like, what do we want to say? What is it that we actually want to say? Why do we even have a fork down? Like, who gives a shit? As long as it's got, so it's like, make it say something. Make the fork talk, for Christ's sake. I think it's so you're at southern Germany. You got tons of forests and tons of caves, right? I mean,
Yeah, but no desert. So
but with no desert, I mean, you could go to what, Spain? Spain has a little bit of a desert.
maybe, but it's a way.
It's
I mean, for
okay.
us, like for Americans, I know for Americans, like a trip of 8 hours is like a small trip. For us, it's like a holiday. So
I get that, but you have a lot of. I mean, as far as like natural environments and
yeah,
different things to be able to record, there's a lot of. Can I ask you, like, what is your favorite? What is your gosh, I guess, what do you like to, where do you like to go when you record? Do you bring like a bunch of equipment with you? Do you rent an Airbnb? I mean, do you kiss your wife? I'm assuming you, and child, goodbye. I'm gonna go record, like go in my little cave. Like, how do you?
yeah. So it depends. I mean, I a few years ago I found through my cousin actually because he went on a bunch of expeditions with friends, like trying to find lost places, and they found this abandoned mine shaft, and it's like not one mine shaft; it's like a massive mine. It's like you could stay there for hours and hours, and they like really know their way around them. And at some point, I'm like, oh, I need to record there. Like, please take me there. So I took a friend of us with us that made some videos and photos. And I took my recording equipment, so my Zoom field recorder and a bunch of microphones, a bunch of different ones, and we just went in there, and it was, I think I already told it on the podcast, but it's one of my favorite places so far to record, because as soon as you walk a few meters in, there's so much rock around you, you don't hear anything. You don't hear birds, you don't hear airplanes, you don't hear cars. That's like the three things that's always annoying when you try to record something. For example, you have this very nice river, which sounds amazing, but then you have either an airplane or cars going by or birds, and you need this like specific sound of just the river. So like finding these clean sources of environment is always not that easy, and this cave is just like a gold mine. You can stay there, and if you like close your eyes, the only thing you hear is like slow drips all around you, and then at some point you hear your own heartbeat because it's so silent. And
Oh
yeah,
wow.
it's yeah, so at some point I just go out and do like a trip. I haven't like rented an Airbnb somewhere. So far I have just made like short trips and recorded like specific ambience or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, when I'm on vacation with my family, it's like, oh, I bring my gear, and I like one afternoon I'm just off for a few hours somewhere and record something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's
So
it's so amazing that, being in the field where you can really appreciate the kind of the natural environment, and like you said, just going into like a mine shaft, and like, kind of like just getting such a kick out of that, and yeah, kind of really appreciating. In a way, it's weird. It's like a form of like natural, being connected with nature, and kind of being connected with the things that we never think about many
Yeah.
times. We just sort of take things for granted, and it's like, oh wait, but like, we'll record those things, and so, and in the so did you record mostly? Yeah, I'm asking you questions.
Yeah, it's fine.
Did you mostly record? I guess the foundation for the impulse control, the impulse.
The impulse response. No, I didn't record it yet. Yeah, yeah, I didn't record it yet in the cave, but I wanted to.
So
So
it was
maybe at some
more for
point.
like ambiances, or
Yeah, yeah. I last time I was there, I brought an Ambisonics mic which is like my newest
yeah,
my
yeah,
newest mic I got to get a 360, and I have some stereo recordings, and then I have some like mono recordings just for drips, because you
wow,
have very clean just drips without anything, and everything else would be in the studio, and it still sounds different like in my home studio. So these kinds of drips are like my prized possession of drips. And it's also like there's an underground waterfall actually in one of the caves,
oh my
in the mine
god,
shaft, like a small one, but it's big enough that it sounds nice. So that's something, yeah, that's very hard to find. So yeah, I usually try to go in with an open mind. Sometimes I go in, especially with this cave. I needed ambience for a cave for a video game, and I said to the game designers like, I'm gonna like record them, especially because I would really like to have something from my part of the world in there, and it fits great, and people also seem to like actually notice, and they comment under one of the videos. One of them even said like, "Oh, it's just like when I was a kid exploring caves. It sounds so real." And I was like, "Yes, yes, because it's real. It's so good." Like that's the thing I want to hear. Um, and yeah, but yeah, I'm trying to, when I'm going somewhere, I'm trying to get the gear that I think I might need. Most of the time, it's like, I should have brought this microphone, or I should have taken more time, or but that's what you do. Like, you scout the place, you see different times of day, different seasons sound different, and yeah, I'm just slowly trying to, like, yeah, record all my surroundings from my home turf, and then yeah, of course, trying to connect with other recorders and share stuff, because that's something that I always really appreciate, hearing from other people and their recording experience and their local things. That's also, of course, why I also did the podcast.
yeah,
And because they have like spent, I could technically buy a plane ticket, fly somewhere in America, and like stay for a week and record something, and I would probably get great material. But if I can get some recordist that lives there and that knows the place, and that, yeah, you know, has listened to this place for a while, I can get the real stuff, and the more insightful recordings. So
yeah, yeah. No, no. I guess that's kind of the like the balance, and I like the title Field and Foley, because it's kind of like, you have kind of your highly like you're doing Foley, you have to control everything, and
yeah,
then in the field, you're letting it control you in a way.
absolutely. It's a certain type of meditation for sure, and it's something that yeah,
Certain things can, yeah, no, I like it. So I like that kind of, it's like control and then not control. I don't know how to
yeah.
but it's like very well balanced, and I just, the title already is like such a great title,
Thank you.
so I think that's very. Did you record any Foley in the mine?
No, not in the mine. Usually, like when I do Foley, I do like you might imagine, like footsteps. That's something that I would like to have more in my studio, like an actual pit or something. But maybe at some point. But more like clothing movements, stuff like that. The certain stuff like leather. Sometimes I do really weird stuff. For one of the projects I worked on, we had this armor that's made of like of bugs. So I found this dead bug lying around, and I actually used like a very tiny microphone that's very very sensitive, and I broke the shell of the dead bug and used that as impact sounds, like actual of the bug armor, and it sounded so cool. It's something very very weird. That yeah, of course it sounds very weird, but it's like I was just breaking the shell of a bug with a little nail, and having a microphone like very close on that like bug, and it's but yeah.
Yeah, it's like stuff like that where you just kind of start messing around with something, and that's really cool. It's like armor with the bark. Similarly, I think we had to do like a character that was like a giant rock. He is a rock, and he moves, and so it's like, how do it's like bear hugging a pile of rocks and then like moving them around.
Yeah.
But that, or you can, like you say, you can get really microscopic where, you can get really close and make something sound big. I would say gear is maybe medium size, and it's kind of like being able to find those things are, gear. Yeah. Getting the right gear is not easy.
Yeah, of course, of course. But it's also, I mean, I also like it because also Foley, like you said, it's like the control thing, but it's also a lot of like experimentation. It's like just being a kid and playing around with stuff, and it's like, oh, this sounds amazing. Let's use this, and yeah, sometimes, and I mean, a lot of the things also should sound boring, or at least like they just should be there and not be noticeable. That's, I think, one of the plights of our vocation is that most of the time sound, and especially also Foley, should just not stick out so people don't notice it. If it's not, just like you said, if it's not like a rock hugging someone or something. So yeah, so you try to like find the ground of everything, and then you find your little pieces where it's like, oh, here I can do something really really nice.
Yeah, like if nobody notices, then we did the job right. It's like if nobody notices, then we did it right. If someone's like, oh yeah, that's Foley, we record the footsteps, and they're like, what? What do you mean? It's like, well, in Avengers, the spaceship, those are wooden sets. Those are not.
It's not metal.
It's not metal. We actually had to make the metal footsteps. All the, I don't know.
The costumes as well, right?
Oh yeah, I mean the costumes. I mean, so another project we did was Arcane.
Oh, nice, awesome.
Yeah, so that's nuts. That one's crazy too. I mean, so they don't have any sounds. I mean, they don't have anything. So it's like everyone's
open field.
It's an open field, and there's all these different characters, and everybody has to sound different. And there's like the gauntlets. There's like and then then there's they're always doing like different things, and I don't think we wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for like just grabbing something and throwing it on the ground and then being like, all right, it's, all right, what's the geometry of this? How do we...
Size, material, roughly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, again, experimentation, and then, just getting a good recording that doesn't, we often say it's like man on the street. It's like if a person on the street sees here's what you just did, and they're like, yeah, sounds good, then it's like, okay, move on.
Yeah. Stamp.
We can beat everything to death, and we do. You could just keep going and going and going. It's not right, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right. But then after a while, you have to go, okay, next.
Yeah, next. Yeah.
Next thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and this strive for perfection is something that's always like at some point you're just lost in the craft, and it doesn't really get better. And even if it does, it's not worth like the hours you put in.
You kind of just have to move on and compare what you're doing to what you'll do next. It's like you have to.
Yeah.
It's all a comparison.
Yeah, keep it all in the same. Yeah. Also, you need to keep it all in the same language so it all fits together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and speaking a bit about sound language and anything, I also wanted to talk about Oppenheimer, because especially Oppenheimer for me was sound-wise, like, I mean, of course, for many people, it was amazing. and I really liked all the small little touches, like the squeaky footsteps on the clean floor, and like the yeah, all the chalk action.
Yeah, yeah.
There were so many like very precise, at least I felt like very precise like movements that were so fun to hear to me. So yeah, I'd like to get your take on it. What was your experience with walking on it? Was it like a nightmare because all those little sounds, or was it just like, oh, that's so amazing, like a Nolan film?
Yeah, no, the latter. I mean, it's so amazing because it's a Nolan film, and it's. I think we did Tenet as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so we
Also
did
great.
Tenet, and but also confusing movie. It's supposed to be confusing. For me, like I remember when I was cueing the Foley, I was like, I see it as like, oh, here's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity to make him sound super scientific, like he's, writing on a chalkboard. And not only is he precise and scientific, but he's emphatic, and he puts a lot. He knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of energy. Pun intended, I guess, in like what he's doing. And like especially writing cues. Writing cues are pretty hard to do for sure. I think paper is probably the hardest. Paper movement, like when I think there's like the union. There's one of them is trying to unionize, and Lawrence is like, "What the heck is this? Like, don't we pay you well enough?" So that I remember that paper was like that was important. Everything is important. Everything is extremely important, and like the creaks of the shoes, and let's see what else. Yeah, like all the right. I think there's like the chairs. What was interesting was we spent so much time on the bleachers. So
Really?
when I think the bomb is gone off. It's one of those cutbacks where he's in front of the crowd, and he's like, and it's like quiet, and you're like in his head, and then he looks out, and then he sees like one of the people in the front row. Their skin is flapping.
Yeah.
And somebody else like. It's quiet. All you hear is it's almost like right before a symphony is about to start.
Yeah.
You can hear everything, and that was a choice that they made, was to just have the Foley.
Yeah. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the stamping of the feet. And
Yes.
we kind of knew that, I don't actually know if we knew that they were going to handle it that way. We just knew that everything had to be very realistic, and just because Christopher Nolan is the shot, that's exactly what he wants. It's like, that's the shot. Even if you can't hear the dialogue, even if it's a weird whatever, it's like that's the shot that he wanted. So it's like that's the thing we have to do. So that was that was kind of, I'm trying to think of any crazy things that we did. No, I mean, that was, the creaks were definitely, the bomb. So when the bomb gets packaged up, and
Oh yeah.
Cillian Murphy and Matt Damon are outside, and they're watching the bomb go away. The chain movement, there's like, because they boarded up, they blotted it out of the chain, and you could hear the chain like most dialogue. I mean, most editors or whoever would have, faded it out.
Yeah, just toned it down.
But they didn't. They let it go.
Yeah.
That's
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked. And we spent a lot of time on the chains. I mean,
That's good. So that means that sometimes you spend a lot of time on something and then it just gets faded down in the mix and you're like, that was a lot of time wasted.
oh my God, every time, most of the time. Most of the time, like, we'll spend a lot of, not most of the time, many times we'll pour our heart and soul into it, and then you go see the movie and you're like, they didn't play the Foley. They didn't really play the Foley. So it doesn't really bother me, because I'm like, I mean, I had so much fun doing it, and I got to pay my rent, and
Of course.
and like I got to pay my bills, and I get to eat food, and I get to go back and do it again tomorrow. So
That's awesome. The work is the thing that you like. That's awesome. That's how it should be.
yeah, the work is the thing, and everything else is kind of like the cherry on top. When like in Oppenheimer, when the bomb goes off and it's quiet, and all you can hear is his goggles and his breathing, and it was like,
Yeah.
that was so rewarding because it was like, oh my, I remember that. I remember
That's
that
awesome.
we punched in after 2. I remember we went through 5 different goggles. It's like, and they
That is
actually
awesome.
decided to keep it basically raw. Like, they literally hardly did anything to it. I'm telling you, it was so dirty. Like,
Nice.
yeah, it was so raw. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah. That's perfect. That also was my experience. Like these moments where like it had a great sound design in a few places, and maybe in many places. But I mean, overall, you had great music, you had great acting, but you also had those spaces for just Foley, and that was something that I found to be an amazingly like bold choice. But of course, I mean, Nolan is someone that's also very, very like intense on sound, and yeah, especially the moment when the bomb got off, and the second one was like you just mentioned, when all is quiet and he can hear the stomping feet. And I think it even, for me, it even sounds then it's like fading into like kind of a train chugging sound maybe or something. But it's like it's so well done, and just like you said, very, very raw, which makes it, at least to me, feel so intense, because Foley is always like a bit over the top because it has to cut through the mix. And if you just have those things, then you get this like hyper intense, like when you're in an anxiety attack, or when you have like when it's panicking, that's how it sounds in your head, right?
Yeah. No, that's kind of how it is. And
Yeah.
a movie is essentially an anxiety attack in a way. It's like,
Yeah, the whole movie, yeah.
yeah, a movie is, you want to go there and you want to be transported. And it depends on, and I also have to mention the movie Zone of Interest,
Yeah, have it on my list to see.
which in terms of a sound job, I mean, that the fact that they had like what, 10 cameras, 20 cameras going on at the same time, the production sound mixer had to essentially, he couldn't really put lavs on anyone because they're having like 5 scenes going on at the same time. And
Okay.
so they had to do a lot of plant mics, I think. And so if you can imagine, it's like, they'd be recording an outdoor scene and an indoor scene at the same time, gives you the opportunity to capture the moment that something is going on outside. When they, and the editors and everyone cuts the movie together, it's the interior scene, but then you can hear the oven, you can hear the world that they're in, that they seem to be oblivious of.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that, as a sound job, I'm not surprised it won, because it was just like, you're like, okay, it has to do with itself. It's like the whole thing is about itself. It's there's no, anyways. So that's my fanning over that movie, but they did an incredible job with that. Another cool sound for Oppenheimer was some weird, because he is, they have all the weird, like, when he's in bed,
the
all
songs.
those weird things, which,
Yeah.
no
Audibles.
special effects. No special effects. That's all practical effects. That's that's famous for that. And we found some. It was like a dog toy, that those, like, I think they're Chinese, those like balls that you kind of move in your hands and they make like a jingle,
Oh yeah.
but it's like a distant jingle. It was kind of like that. It was like it had a little thing in it, and it actually lit up, and it looked ridiculous. It looked completely, it was stupid. It was like, what, I'm going to use this thing? It's like, well, no one's going to see it. They're just going to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we messed around with that. And yeah, like it's just really knowing who's mixing the movie, who the clients are, who you're catering to, is just as important as whatever you personally think is the right sound. It's like,
Yeah.
well, this is what they're gonna like. They're gonna like this because I know this person likes. They like this. They like more of the plasticky gun movement rather than the metally gun movement. I don't know.
Yeah, everyone has their sonic preferences. Yeah.
Sure, exactly.
Um, yeah, maybe going a bit into the direction of advice for aspiring mixers. Do you have any words of advice for people that want to go into the whole mixing and especially like into Foley?
I mean, shit. It's weird because I got into it. I guess I'll kind of go into it from the way that I went into it, which was that I was not doing that at all. I was acting and I was doing stage acting. And I've always been very sensitive to sound and yeah, like very, very sensitive to sound and to light and, certain things like that. Not crazy, like not, what is it called? Mesophobia or mesophobia. It's like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
it was not as intense as that, but definitely I just remember being like, this, I can't do that, so maybe that helped. I don't know, but I was acting. But then I sort of got a job as an assistant, and then I was like, this is really cool. An assistant for a Foley company. I was like, this is really cool. It goes along with my character and kind of like the sensuality, I guess, of it, like the sensory nature of it, and then I would say a lot of times it's like getting into, well, now with the internet and everything, like you can connect with people even if you're not in their cities, but I still think like going to like a major city, and not necessarily trying to do everything like through LinkedIn or through any job boards or but going to a city, because you'll be around people, and a lot of sound people, we don't really spend time with each other a lot of the times, and and so seeing if you can drop in and making appointments with people, kind of. I was always told just do whatever, try and get as close to it as you can, and then do whatever job you have the ability to do it as best as you can, and try and do a really good job. Lose a little sleep over it. Push a little bit, and let yourself get pushed, and then you have a lot of patience and be extremely persistent. Foley mixing it's kind of a very unique thing. Yeah, so, and like you do everything. So it depends on what you want to go into, but I would say just do everything like you're doing. I mean,
Yeah, trying to find what's in what direction that you like. I mean, I had the same thing. I started with wanting to do music, as many do,
yeah.
and I just took like a 12-month course learning to mix. And during that, I found out that actually like designing sounds and recording is what I like. And so yeah, just do everything and then see what feels good and what sticks. I think that's a pretty good like advice overall for especially also for the sound industry, because like I just said, we have so many fields now. We have like I know people that do like the spatial audio stuff and the 3D stuff, and audio programming, but I have no idea. Like it's like, wow, it's magic to me. I know what they do and how it sounds then, but like how they do it and what they do technically is like it's not my level. So yeah, it's very interesting to just go into all, just like you said. That's a cool.
Yeah,
It's
and
good
then
advice
it's
to give. Yeah.
I work with a lot of like older people that have been doing it for a long time, like 60s, 70s, even I mean, I think what's his name, Bert. the lightsaber.
You mean Ben Bird, right?
Ben Bird.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's like 74.
I could remember almost because it's like I'm also Ben, so.
Yeah, no, yeah. So it's like, and something the wisdom that I feel like has helped me is like not trying to get too caught up in the technical aspects of it, and really just try and find, especially in Foley, like find the sound with a prop. Like find the sound with the prop, and nothing will beat the performance that you're doing,
Yeah.
right now. I mean, maybe in the future there's certain companies out there that are developing tools you can use, but try and find the prop that works and just kind of go with it. And like you go to like a mine, you go to and it's like it takes a lot more work, but that's how you have to do it. And then just reach out to people, for lack of a better expression, it's like you have to take out a spoon and eat shit. You just you just got to take your spoon out, and you got to just go out there and just make connections. And a lot of people are like, start your own company, so anyways, try and visit some stages. There's some great Foley stages, I think, in a couple in Germany.
Yeah. I have some on my list that I want to connect with, and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we'll see how the technology goes. But like you just said, like the thing about like recording might be more work. I found like, and I also talked to other sound designers that record their own material, that oftentimes if you have a certain affinity for recording and for doing Foley or in general recording, that very often it's way easier to record it yourself than to find something in a library, because like finding that specific door or that specific footstep sound with that specific rhythm is going to be impossible, because what kind of like words are you searching for that file name, it's like, yeah, no idea. You can hear through hundreds or thousands of sounds, and then you have to buy them all to hear all of them. So oftentimes it's really easier, and like you said, it's in the performance. That's really where the magic is. Even if the sound isn't 100% right, if the performance is right, it's gonna sell it. And
100%.
yeah, and then
Well
that
said.
brings me to a question that I always like to ask my guests,
Yes.
and I also like to ask you, and I will see what you answer. What is the first sound you ever recorded, and why did you record it?
Oh my God. The first sound I ever recorded. The first sound I ever recorded was cloth. Was the
Classic.
Yeah, it was the cloth pass that we do for everything, after, which is mostly used for ADR, So I thought it was used. I was like, oh, it's Foley, and then they were like, no, it's actually they'll use it if they have to ADR lines, so that if they need to make it more natural, like if a character is lifting their arm while they're doing their ADR line, you have the sound of the arm lift as like a, so you can. And the reason why I recorded it, one was because I was still learning how to record or be a mixer. And it's one of the easiest ways to get into it, because you just set your levels and you just kind of press record, and that's it. And, if there's a chair creak, you stop and then you continue recording. But it's kind of boring, but that's that was the first sound I ever recorded, was like, a Foley pass. And then the second sound, which you didn't ask, but I think the second sound was footsteps. Yeah. Yes, because it's long, it's simple,
But you have to get the rhythm right and everything, right? How did you find it? Was it like, oh, very easy to do, or did you like instantly realize like, oh shit, that's gonna be...
It was pretty, it clicked for me.
Nice.
Pretty early on, it clicked where I was like, oh, okay, I get this. I know there is something that I can get here. There's something here. maybe I didn't do it the right way right now, but I know that, that I can do it, and I'm not necessarily afraid of messing up a lot. And it's non-destructive recording, so
Yeah.
you can record it 1,000 times and it's okay. But yeah. So that was probably the first thing that I recorded was cloth and footsteps.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like boring, but like I don't think so.
No, I mean it's the bread and butter, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's the stuff that you hear in like most of the scenes, because when people are talking, you have the cloth movements, or people are walking. It's like a lot of the stuff is like it's the basics, and they have to be right, because if the timing is off, or if the shoes don't sound right. You can hear that in some like very small budgeted like short movies when you see like, oh, they use the library for the footsteps. You can I mean, at least I myself, it's like instantly recognizable that it's like from a library and it not performed, because sometimes the rhythm is not right and the sounds are like very much not fitting. So
Yeah, a little boxy. They can sound a little boxy when you get
yeah.
them. The ambience might not be the same. You might have to attach ambience to them. We will add room tone in the recording. And so we like to deliver it. If they're like in a giant hallway, it's like,
Of course,
we'll add reverb to it, like already. But yeah, like you said, it's the stuff that, you just sort of, it's like if you ate food and you didn't hear yourself chew, it would be weird. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't.
Very uncanny.
Yeah. So that's kind of the way in, and if you just like it, then you're like, you're good. It's it's like there's so much. There's a whole universe in a footstep. So.
That's a wonderful closing word. I think that's a whole universe in a footstep. I'm gonna have that on a T-shirt probably.
I would love. I would love to buy one of those T-shirts. You should make them.
I'm gonna make a note. I'm gonna send you one for free.
Okay, all right, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's your quote. I mean, it's your payment as the free shirt.
Yeah, no, I mean it's true though. I mean it's like it's like that's
Absolutely.
that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so then the only thing left to do really is like to just give you the stage for. Do you have any shout outs, any upcoming projects you can talk about, or anything like you want to give people notice about? Anything you're passionate about?
Oh gosh. Oh God. Just keep going to the movie theaters. I think we just finished Planet of the Apes.
Nice.
And so that one's going to be pretty incredible. I think did a tremendous job on it. Dan O'Connell and John Cucci are our main Foley artists, and they did an incredible, painful job to get through. It was massive. So we have that going out. To anyone out there who is who loves sound and likes to record things, just keep doing it, and just get into it and get your emotions into it. Get your feeling into it and kind of feel it out, because I know that with Oppenheimer, that's what it was all about, was the feeling. That's what it's all about, is just how does it feel. I know it sounds, what something sounds like could be different than what it feels like, or what it feels like it sounds like. And so thanks for having me on, and thank you listeners for listening to us, talk about sound.
Thank you again. Thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah.
Looking for more audio-related podcasts to listen to? We're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting on patreon.com/fieldandfoley or ko-fi.com/fieldandfoley, where you gain early access to episodes in lossless format and can submit questions for our guests. Thank you for listening.